Columbia. This is Houston, AOS, over.
Alrighty, welcome everybody to the Knicks Wall Podcast. It is a very, very big day for us over here. I am Anthony Corbo. Joining me as I always do, we've got Brian Gibberman.
What's up, everyone?
And my dude Kyle Maggio.
What's going on, everyone?
And I really stoked to finally be able to announce this, but we have we found ourselves a home. We are now a part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. It feels really good to be here. Really exciting to, start talking to the guys. Kevin Jones over there, his whole team have been really great with, getting us accommodated early. We have some pretty slick new artwork that they helped us design, as well as our resident graphics expert and just overall amazing dude, Ryan Gray, who is also responsible behind the Offseason simulator that all of you have been enjoying on Twitter the last couple of days. And big shout out to him for killing it the last few days. But we're here. We're on Blue Wire. It's same show. We're gonna have a couple of new things going on, but overall it's me, it's Kyle, it's Brian, and we're just excited to keep on bringing you the same good stuff we've always been. So it feels good to be home, dudes.
They're stuck with us.
They are for a little bit at least.
I'm real excited about it. I think it's going to go well. Thanks for having us, to everybody who's part of the Blue Wire, listening for the first time, and just happy to be here. And another thing that I'm excited about, guys, is the Celtics got fucking blasted, huh?
I was hoping you were going to go there. Yes.
I mean, Brian, can you count for me the amount of games that this series went? It was 5, I believe, right?
I thought it was over after
6.
one game. I was told it was over after one game.
Who said that, by the way? I'm just curious.
It couldn't be.
It couldn't. It was Paul Pierce?
Paul Pierce.
Right. So he said it was over after game 1, right? They got blasted in back-to-back games. I think he thought it was going to go Celtics in 6 is a thing that I heard him say. And in fact, they went Bucks in 5, and 5, guys, is actually a gentleman's sweep. It's like a respectful sweep. So the Bucks had the decency.
No, there was nothing respectful about that sweep.
There was nothing. Just a bloodbath. Just an absolute bloodbath. And I, for one, and I cannot stress this point enough, you really hate to see that. You just... Boy, you hate to see that. You just really hate it. It's a tough scene. I was told that Brad Einstein, the inventor of basketball, was somebody that you should start a franchise with over Giannis. That was a thing that was happening online, if I'm not mistaken, from these tweets that I have up in front of me.
Wait, who?
Brad Naismith.
Oh, you're talking about Mayor Pete.
Yeah, Mayor Pete.
Yeah.
The one and only Brad Stevens, the inventor of basketball himself, the genius. In his own words today, I did a bad job, is what he said. So, as you can tell, I'm eating this up.
Coaching for his job.
Coaching for his job. You hate to see that. So Kyrie, we can do all the Kyrie speculation. If you want to do that, as Anthony said earlier at the top of the podcast, check out the Knicks Wall Offseason app. You can convince Kyrie to sign, Kevin Durant, anybody else. It's a fantastic app. If you've even been on Twitter the last couple of days, you've seen it not just on our own timelines, but various others, not just Knicks people, but across different NBA people. So give it a shot. It's on the Knicks Wall homepage. You go to the knickswall.com. It's there. It's on our Twitter. I'm tweeting about it constantly, especially after this Celtics meltdown. So have a blast with it.
Can I tell you what happened with me the first time I used it? So I have refused to run any sort of simulation this whole season. I've not done Tankathon. I've done nothing because I was living in fear that if if I were to do it, then whatever my results were from it, we would no longer get the number 1 overall pick. I lived in fear of that. I lived in belief of that. And then this off-season simulator just cracked me. So I had at it. I loaded it up. And then something went wrong with my internet. But I drafted Zion first. And then it crashed. And then I drafted Ja. And then it crashed. Then I got the number 5 pick. And I got Cam Reddish. And I got, I did the thing. I got the Durant. I got I don't think I got Kyrie. I got Kemba. Walked away with Reddish, and I got myself a cool 54-win season. And that is something that I'm all for.
Can we take a second to appreciate that 3 people who root for the Knicks were just crushing a team because they lost in the second round of the playoffs?
I mean, we don't have to.
We're not going to acknowledge that we were doing that? Okay.
No, we're going to keep on talking about this outstanding piece of HTML that we got here. Brian, have you run any simulations using our off-season app?
Oh, yeah, I've used that thing way too many times.
Well, I mean, Kyle's been... I mean, if he's done anything else besides run that app, I'm not entirely sure.
No, that's literally it.
But what's the what's the move here? Like, what seems to be the pick you guys are getting in all of your several practices you guys have run at this point? Like, is it 5 just keeps on coming up and up, or are you getting some interesting results?
I almost exclusively get 4 in Jarrett Culver. That's almost exactly how all of my simulations start out. I get Jarrett Culver, and I've either gotten Zion, Jarrett Culver, or Cam. Like, that's it. But it's almost 75% of the time I've gotten Jarrett Culver.
The funny thing talking about all of this is that this entire time I have not, and I'm still not, even like when I'm using this stuff, like I was like Anthony, I've never ran tankathon.com once. I don't do it. But I just don't, I refuse to even acknowledge the possibility that Zion is going to be on the Knicks. It's a 14% chance. That's just not high enough for me to care or pretend. Like, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to watch the lottery, I'm going to hope it happens. And if it doesn't, I'm just going to go along with my day because I never expected it to happen.
Yeah, the Zion thing I've been trying not to get my hopes up for, because literally it's a coin flip that you get the 5th pick or 4 other picks. Like, that's not enough to instill confidence. So when we do things like from the Knicks Wall account where we joke and have fun with things, like, I have no problem ripping as many Kevin Durant things as I can. I have no problem ripping some Kyrie stuff. But the Zion stuff hasn't been, like, over the top, per se, because I'm not... You can't. Like, it's totally out of your control. There's nothing you can do about it unless the NBA is going to rig it for you. So, Adam Silver, if you're listening, please, bro, please. But aside from that, I mean, there's nothing else we could do. We're literally just praying at that point. It stinks, but the game is the game here. That's why I think on the last couple of pods, I just keep saying, if we can get a top 3 pick, I'm cool. I could talk myself into most of those picks. If it's 4 or 5, it's going to get dark pretty fast. But if you can give me, for me anyway, my top 3 is, Zion, obviously, John Morant, or RJ Barrett. If I can get one of those 3 guys, I'll do my little 180. I'll start talking myself into everybody. But those 3 guys, I'd be really encouraged.
I'm going to talk myself into whoever they pick, no matter what.
I like Culver, but it's like, when you see like what the top 3 picks are, and again, that's not how drafts work. We always think that there's only one or 2 real options for our guys, and then there's always a guy who goes like 9th who ends up being a star. So like, I don't want us to get locked in to where we always do that little order and the bunch, and it has to be one of those guys. And I'm contradicting what I just said, but it's just the way that the draft stuff works. We kind of get conditioned into doing the mock drafts and making our own personal rankings and things that we hear and see. And so just remember, guys, like, bad things could happen to the Knicks, and like, it might be okay. Even if it's just totally by accident. Like, guys who are in the back end of that lottery or the middle of the lottery sometimes end up really panning out nicely. So it is what it is. Hopefully they do the due diligence. Hopefully they pick a guy that they're confident in and it works out. But the draft is such a crapshoot.
It's like there's really not such a thing as like a bad move here necessarily, or we're not going to know it on draft night. It's pretty much what you're both saying here. Like even in the worst case scenario, the Knicks have the 5th pick. They're going to draft a player who has the potential of becoming, becoming a star here. It's, a worst case scenario in the grand scheme of things is not all that bad. It's just that best case scenario is so damn daunting,
I'm going to do the draft like I did last year. I'm not going to get myself invested in anyone specific. I'm just going to enjoy the process, watch it play out, not get mad at anything, and root for whoever they take. That made everything so much easier last year, not being like, I want this guy, I'm going to be pissed if they take this guy. So I'm just going to try and avoid doing that again and just sitting back, and Summer League will come around and I'll get to watch the player more and I'll start to build an opinion, getting to see them more in-depthly rather than judging it off of 4 or 5 games live.
Yeah, there are some definite scenarios out there. We're only ever hearing about the dream scenario. Like that's the only thing that any of us are talking about is really what we've been guilty about talking a lot about and not really considering too many other options. And the more that we talk to other people around the league, and we have Robert Flom and we have Kellan Olson coming on later talking about some Clippers and some Suns respectively. But it seems like there are so many other options out there that just we are not necessarily considering because we got such an eye on the prize mentality here. But, we do have, before we get too far into, we did have some suggestions coming from the audience. We put up a little poll here, and we were taking a look at, we put up a couple of different scenarios handpicked by Kyle Maggio himself. Kyle, do you want to quickly run through the players and the records in this, in the screen caps that you put up before?
Yeah, so you'll probably notice in the screen caps that none of those were the dream scenario that we all hope for. There was no KD and Kyrie. There was no KD and another superstar. The point was, guys, if I did that, you and myself included would have all picked that option. So what I try to do is give you 4 more balanced situations where you get a good thing, but it's not exactly what you wanted. And I think that's kind of what we got to hedge ourselves to think a little bit. So that's kind of the thought exercise with the poll is. So I gave you 4 different options here, and I'll start with the first one. The option A was you draft Ja Morant. I think most of us would be pretty happy, even if you're a little lower on Ja Morant. I think if the Knicks get the 2nd or 3rd pick, end up with Ja, it's a good turnout for as much as we know about the college players right now, right? So, okay, that's a good start. But as it always seems to happen with the Knicks, we can't really rely on free agents, right? So we still gave you somebody here, but it wasn't exactly the guy you wanted. So it was Jimmy Butler. But you signed guys like Bogdanovich, JJ Redick, give them a couple of shooters. We bring Shump back. And the simulated record, again, guys, this is a rough ballpark. This is not a sniper accurate, prediction for what your team's record's going to be. But the team record here was 47-35. So you get Ja Morant, Jimmy, couple of shooters, 47-35. It's not bad. I mean, it's not what you want. It's not what we've dreamed about, but it's winning basketball, which that's what we all want at the end of the day. So that's option A. Option B is, assuming the Knicks fell to 5th here, they get Garland, and who's that nice offensive stalwart of a point guard. But you do get Kevin Durant. But you also signed Vucevic. And I don't think that would ever happen, but you never know. But here they signed Vucevic and KD to go along with Garland. They brought back Shump. That team's 49-33. I personally would have taken it because, as I've said many times in this podcast, if I can get Kevin Durant, it is almost impossible to disappoint me. It's going to be very difficult. If they signed Vucevic and they had Mitch, I would probably be upset, to be honest.
I would be enraged, and that would ruin signing Kevin Durant for me.
Yeah. So I would be more inclined to agree. Like, if you get a Vucevic and you have Mitch, like, it doesn't really make sense. So I don't think that would happen. But again, you never know. But either way, like, for me, I would still probably go with whatever gets you Durant. Now, the one that I thought was going to contest the most with this one was you get Kyrie, you don't get KD, you don't get any other notable big superstar free agents, but you get Zion. So I was a little bit torn here because getting Zion and Kyrie is pretty good. You know, Kyrie's still pretty young. Entering his prime anyway, and Zion is Zion. And if he's as good as we think he's going to be, he's most likely going to be a star coming into the league. So that's a pretty good option. And this one, you also get Nerlens Noel, probably to back up Mitchell Robinson. You get Tyreek Evans, some wing defending help, which Lord knows the Knicks need it with Trevor Ariza. And the record there was 47-35. And the last option was... I wouldn't call it the doomsday scenario, and I think the record's being a little dramatic here. But they get nobody in the dream scenario. They get Tobias Harris, Jimmy Butler, and you fall to 5 and get Cam Reddish. I'm aware that as those words just came out of my mouth, I can hear the audible groan from all the listeners because nobody wants to think about that. Nobody wants to think about what if they get 2 free agents that aren't Kyrie or Kemba or Kevin Durant. What if they don't get a Zion, a Ja Morant, an RJ Barrett? But, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. So the record for this one was 38-44.
I'll take the over.
For that one? Yeah.
Like I think that's a decent... Like, Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris are damn good.
They're damn good. The problem is, after what we've been through, none of the Knicks fans are going to want damn good. That's the problem. They want... like just better, you know. They just want impossibly good or close. You know, they think that they deserve it. I would be inclined to agree again, but
you agree that fine. I mean, you agree that the 17-win team deserves to have something better than, what was that record? 57 was it?
I just think at some point
47. No, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one.
No, the Jimmy Tobias one, the simulator.
30. Oh yeah, 38
wins. Like
I don't. But that's even such a marketed. Like that's 21 games up.
To be honest, the record should probably be, the wins and losses on that one probably could be flipped, and I would be inclined to believe it. Like that's probably a slightly above 500 team, assuming Mitch is going to secure the paint there. You have all the same kids from last year. I'd assume that's like a 500-ish team, maybe a little bit better.
41-45 wins is where I would put a team with. I think it's underestimating how good Jimmy Butler is.
Yeah, me too. But I'm trying to just pull the poll results up here. So
I would take the Kyrie Zion team.
I think that's probably the move. I went with Durant just because I just think that's probably a more, aside from the Vucevic thing, I just think like that's probably the most realistic thing. I don't think that the draft goes well, and I think if we're going to get a guy, he's probably the guy, but I don't really think anybody else is coming. Maybe they trade for somebody else, but to me, like, that's how I was looking at it.
I liked how you brought the one scenario in that would make me go, nope, I'm not taking KD.
Well, I mean, that's what it comes down to is everybody wants to think like this is a layup, and it's not. Like, you don't know who the second guy would be. You don't know that they're going to get a good draft pick either. Like, you got to like really hedge it a little bit with, okay, you get KD, you get the crown jewel, but you also got to take a sack of shit along with it. And how does that make you feel?
Yeah, but you could have done like KD and Julius Randle, and I would have ran away with that one. Like, I would have been like, yup.
The whole point of at least using the Vucevic one was because obviously if we gave you Kevin Durant and Kyrie, you're going to choose that option. So I have to give you the crown jewel of the summer along with a couple of sacks of shit that you're not really going to want. And so you're going to see how you react to it. So that was the intention, to try to not make it obvious. The Vucevic one in particular, I mean, there were just so many Kevin Durant related ones that we got sent, and most of them had Kyrie, a lot of them had Kemba, a lot of them had Zion. So it's really hard to sift through any of the ones that just had Durant, because I feel like a lot of people probably rescinded it a lot of times until they got the situation that they wanted, which is fair. I mean, that's the point of the app. But that was another one that I had found. It was just like Kevin, and I think it was Kevin, Cam Reddish, and just like Danny Green, and a bunch of just miscellaneous. Really, it was like Tyreek Evans, Nerlens Noel too. Just a really, and it was too many role players. I didn't want to go with that one, so I thought this one was a little bit cleaner, and the record was solid enough to give you pause.
Well, we have, the results are in. We got plenty of people who have voted on this draft so far, and it's looking like the one that most of us seem to prefer is Zion Williamson. Regardless of who else is around him, it's Zion Williamson. It's signing Kyrie Irving, and then you get this smorgasbord of Nerlens Noel in there, and you get who we got here? Tyreek Evans. You got Trevor Ariza. Is that Trevor Ariza?
It is. I don't like the Ariza.
Does not look like Trevor Ariza, but okay.
I don't like the Ariza Evans part of it. Ariza looked washed this year. Maybe he on a team that's better, he'll try harder. And Evans, maybe he has a bounce back year because he was one of the worst regular rotation players in the NBA this season. So those two guys worry me. But I think Noel's a perfect backup for Mitch, basically just playing the same exact role he did with OKC this year. And then you build the team around Kyrie and Zion, and you pray Knox takes a step forward and Mitch is as good as we think he is.
I think if Mitch is just, for that particular one, I think if Mitch is just who we think he is, and kind of has that. Remember how Capella pretty quickly figured things out? I think it was like his second or third year, he just took a pretty significant stride.
It was when he replaced Dwight, and there was no drop off.
Yeah, it was almost immediate. You kind of realized, and I kind of feel like that's what Mitch was giving us a little bit at the end of the season, except on a Dollar Tree version of it with a really shitty team. So I feel like if he's just anything close to what we think he is, and he does any kind of improvement, takes any kind of stride next year, pairing him with Zion, who's kind of a menace and blocks a shit ton of shots for his position, and I just feel like those two would be enough to really anchor your defense, at least your interior defense. And then furthermore, you have Kyrie and Zion's going to be able to score. You get those guys any shooters, and like you said, if Kevin Knox can just be a passable player next year, even with Dotson on that team, I would assume he's still there. I like it. I think that's a pretty balanced team. You're going to have some good defense. You're going to have finally, the superstar point guard we've needed for a long time. It would be a fun team.
I like a Kyrie, Dotson, Knox, Zion, Mitchell starting lineup is a starting lineup of a good basketball team. I do think Knox isn't going to be the negative. I'm taking a positive view with Knox. I don't think he is going to be the negative he was this past season next year.
It's hard to be, as bad as he was in stretches this year. So I tend to agree with you there. 46% of voters, and there's still time to vote on this. There's still going to be time when this podcast comes out for people to vote on this. But option C in our poll that we ran here, 46%, that team we just talked about. Coming in second there with 27% of the vote was the there was the Kevin Durant, Vucevic scenario, bringing back Shump, all that good stuff. The Ja Morant, Jimmy Butler one was 24%. That was interesting to me. It was kind of close between those two, and then 3% of the votes wanted to go with the Jimmy Tobias pairing. Shumpert keeps on popping up in these.
A lot of people want to just bring back former Knicks.
Yeah.
We got a bevy of the Carmelo returns to bring him home.
Yeah, he was something like his cap hold was $4 million on there. Like, I feel
Yeah,
like we would have gotten a lot more if it was just easier to fit him in with the the max guys that they were trying to get. I think that the majority, at least of our people who we interact with on a regular basis, I'm pretty sure the majority of us would welcome Melo in some capacity or another. I feel like Brian doesn't agree with that, but
would you like to hear one we literally just got sent a few minutes ago?
yeah, and then we will head to our interview with Robert Flom after that. The interview that definitely did not get the first 5 minutes cut off of it, and then we had to re-record it at all. But go ahead.
So we just talked about middling scenarios basically and making you guys pick. So we just got a God scenario sent to us where it's Zion was drafted, you landed Kevin Durant, and then as the second star, you landed Kawhi Leonard. That was a 65-17 record.
Yeah, I'm very much for that. I mean, it's the God scenario. There's not much more that you could really ask for. I mean, can you those two on the wing together with I mean, you're overloading on forwards and everything, but at that point, you just don't really. Doesn't really matter.
You find a way to just slap it in.
Oh, and Knox, you can trade. There's trades that are going to come from that point forward if you get those two.
Kevin,
that's the dream scenario. Like that's above Kyrie and KD, but I just don't think it's realistic. So I don't really.
We make Kevin Durant the second 7 foot shooting guard since Jared Jeffries.
That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Let's keep it that way, please.
Yeah, all right. No more Jared Jeffries.
Oh my God.
Only dreams of Kevin Durant moving forward, playing the 2 at 7 feet tall. We're gonna go ahead and talk to Robert Flom now. We got Kellan Olson coming up later in the pod. Yeah, let's make it happen. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. We're back.
I like that you just leaned
I was
right
like,
into it.
why in the world were you cutting him off? I was like,
I know.
Why?
I was like, what could possibly be so important?
So we are back. We are back on the Knicks Wall Podcast after going about 5 or 6 minutes here with our guest Robert Flom of Clips Nation and Blazers Edge and the Bball Index. Before realizing that our podcast just simply was not recording. So we're taking it again. He's a great sport about it, and thanks for coming on the show, Robert.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me
on. So we're going to go ahead and rehash some of what we were just talking about a second ago, but I think the most interesting piece of conversation we just had was Kyle was asking about Jimmy Butler's fit as the lone superstar in on the Clippers if they kind of strike out on maybe the Kawhi Leonard or some of the other targets they have there. I guess, can you just tell us how highly on your list Jimmy Butler is rated, and if you just think that he is, I guess, the missing piece around the Clippers?
I wouldn't have him rated very highly. I definitely think of him more as a secondary guy, especially kind of this late into his career. I think if he was available 3 to 4 years ago and you could have signed him to a 4 to 5 year deal as a lone guy, I think that would have been understandable and a smart move. But now I think he's almost 30. He's played a ton of miles. He's played a ton of minutes, lots of miles on those knees and ankles and what have you. I don't know that his game is going to age particularly well. It's built kind of a lot on bullying players and having kind of a quickness edge on both ends of the court. He's not really a great shooter. He's not a non-shooter either. So I just don't know how he's going to age. I'm worried about injuries. I am worried about his attitude. I think with the system that the Clippers have built and the amount of pedigree they have in the organization with Jerry West and Doc Rivers and even Steve Ballmer, I'm not that worried about it. But I just don't know if he's going to be good enough for more than a year or two to have as the lone superstar for the Clippers. I think if they do land a Kawhi or a KD, he'd be a perfect secondary star. We've seen a lot of that in Philly in the playoffs, where he can just do a lot of the little things, except at a really high level. And when he needs to, he can get buckets. but I just don't know if he's good enough to carry the rest of this roster for more than like a year or two, especially as the other Clippers veterans age, like Lou Williams and Pat Beverly. Like, obviously, part of the great situation with the Clippers is as those guys age, you hope that Landry Shamet and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and to a lesser extent Jerome Robinson and Ivica Zubac, kind of step up their game and become star players. But you can't count on it. And if the Clippers really want to go in this summer, I don't think they can come out of it with Jimmy Butler as their lone superstar max. If anything, if it was a decision between adding him as a lone guy and just moving on with lesser players, but at smaller, less expensive deals, I think I'd probably go for the latter and just kind of run it back. But use those nice contracts as filler pieces in a trade. Like, I think Bradley Beal is probably around the same level as Jimmy Butler is as a player, but is like 4 years younger, has been really healthy the past few years. I'd probably rather have him on a deal than Butler going for the next 4 or 5 years. Obviously Anthony Davis is out there somewhere, but the assets required to get him is kind of daunting. So
that's what I kind of want to ask you too, like about just where the Clippers assets lie compared to, I don't know, we can use the Knicks as an example with, Trier and, say Mitchell Robinson, Kevin Knox, they're picking the draft potentially, but that draft pick aside, I would probably look at the Clippers core as being, their assets, their players that they can make available in a trade as being more valuable as anything that the Knicks probably have to offer at the moment. Maybe Mitchell Robinson aside, but I mean, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and you have Montrezl Harrell playing a great season out there. You have a bunch of, Landry Shamet. You have all these younger dudes contributing in big ways to your team. And that, to me, feels like it would, your dollar would stretch further going for them rather than the Knicks' unproven talent.
I mean, I think absolutely just the Clippers' assets compared to the Knicks, the Clippers are better. It really, like you said, it depends on the pick. I mean, if the Knicks get one and Zion Williamson, the entire conversation changes just because he's like a generational level talent. Even 2 or 3, I think I'd probably still take a Clippers offer. Mitchell Robinson is definitely a blue chip tier asset. He was great this season, far better than I thought. And, his defense could be really, really special. So he's very valuable, but I just don't value that much also in the Knicks, to be honest. I was very low on Kevin Knox going into the draft. I didn't think he was particularly good in college, was awful in his rookie season. Plenty of players have had bad rookie seasons and gone on to have nice NBA careers. But I can't think of many stars who are that bad their rookie seasons. Alonzo Trier was a nice surprise. I think he's good, but he's already 23. I don't necessarily see a ton of upside there. Frank Ntilikina, again, I like him, but none of those guys really move much of a deal for me. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I don't know if he ranks above Mitchell Robinson. Most people would probably have Robinson higher, but he was great in his rookie season. Flashed real two-way ability as a point guard, can play off the ball, just tons of skills and just almost limitless upside, really. There's so many ways he can get better. He's not a guy who's really boxed in. Landry Shamet, already probably one of the 15 best shooters in the NBA, I'd say. Not many guys I'd be more confident in making an open shot than Shamet. Flashed some real ability to hit off the dribble as well late in the season. So those guys alone are worth more than probably anything on the Knicks combined, I'd say. Even with Mitchell Robinson, I just don't think the rest of their players are worth that much. I'm sure there's some general managers who are higher on Knox than I am, but his rookie season was really bad. That's not even counting Jerome Robinson, who didn't do much himself, but also didn't do that much badly. So he's kind of still untapped, I'd say. Montrezl Harrell, as you mentioned, is 25 years old on a really cheap contract for next year, was legitimately, a top 75 player this year. Flashed signs of being able to shoot threes. He really picked up his playmaking. Yeah, I mean, I think barring the Knicks getting Zion, I think I take the Clippers package. But it really depends. David Griffin could love John Morant or RJ Barrett, or he could still just think Kevin Knox could be special. But I personally, obviously there's some bias in there, but I think the Clippers assets are a fair amount better.
Is there a cutoff point of someone you wouldn't include in an Anthony Davis trade, or is Harrell Shai, Shamet, even Lou Williams. If they like, is that all on the table? You could have all four of those guys if they wanted for AD.
It's tough. Player fans, even media people, get attached to young guys very quickly. I know Clippers fans would be very upset if Shai and or Shamet were to be traded. I think, again, a lot really depends on who else they land. I do not trust Rich Paul at all. I don't think Anthony Davis is a sure bet to re-sign anywhere he's traded, except maybe the Lakers. So I think giving up a ton of assets for him is really risky. But again, it really depends on who else. Like, if they're able to get a Kawhi or Kevin Durant and then make an Anthony Davis trade, I'd feel much better about it. Knowing you have another superstar locked up for 4 or 5 years, I'd feel much better about Davis re-signing. Whereas if you're just making the trade for AD, it might just be, a year or two rental. So I think everybody is on the table, but I do not think I'd trade both Shai and Shamet for Anthony Davis unless he gave some kind of confirmation that he'd resign or they had another superstar in the bag alongside him.
So are in the Los Angeles area, fans, bloggers, beat writers, is it pretty much just assumed it's a done deal with Kawhi, or is there some wiggle room there?
I think there's probably been more optimism about Kawhi through national channels than there is through local. I think you've gotten a sense for a long time now that the Clippers were the top choice through, Wojnarowski and Shams and all those people. Locally, again, a lot of Clippers fans are very pessimistic. They won't think Kawhi Leonard is going to be a Clipper until Kawhi Leonard is wearing a Clippers jersey. I don't really blame them. That's kind of how I feel. But I think they are in a pretty good situation for him. Really, we've heard nothing about any other team but the Clippers and the Raptors. So really, again, I think a lot of it comes down to how well the Raptors do in the playoffs. I mean, they're up 3-2 against the Sixers. They have the momentum in that series. If they lose to the Sixers, I think Kawhi is probably gone. Even if they make the conference finals and lose, kind of badly to the Bucks, which I think is in play because I think the Bucks are monstrously good. I think Kawhi might still leave. But generally, I think there is a sense that Kawhi is going to the Clippers. I know the Clippers themselves are incredibly optimistic about him. Whether that just says more about how confident they are as a front office in general, or because they really do know that he's coming, is hard to say. But I know that they are extremely confident. They really think Kawhi is coming.
Is there so I proposed that Jimmy Butler scenario before, but is there a worst star next to him that you guys would accept? If he was let's say the best star that you got this summer, is there another guy that's a little bit lesser than him? Where's the cutoff for you guys to get a duo that isn't quite Kawhi, but you would be oh, you know what, I can fuck with this. I like this.
I'd say Kawhi and Kawhi. I'd say Jimmy and probably Kemba maybe. Even though the Clippers already have a ton of guards, I just think Kemba's probably.
I love
Shai.
Shai.
Shai's great. Part of the reason why he's good, though, is because of his size and his ability to play a little off the ball. So I think he could work alongside Kemba. Really, the problem with Kemba is that he and Lou Williams are very similar players. I don't really think you could get away with playing both of them defensively. You could always flip Lou, but that just means that, Kemba over Lou is obviously an upgrade, but it's not a massive one, which might sound crazy, but Lou Williams is really, really good. And I'd say Kemba maybe. I think Chris Middleton is overrated. The Clippers already have basically said they don't want to pay Tobias Harris max money. And after that, you start getting down towards the lower end of into tier C guys. If Kyrie was available, him and Jimmy would be great on the court. I just don't know about that personality clash and just what that locker room would be like. I don't really know. I don't think Chris Middleton is worth a max. A Jimmy Chris Middleton, wing combination would be really, really good, but I think that would be overpaid and would probably look pretty bad in a couple years. So honestly, I can't really see it. I think again, if you're talking trades too, I think if you get Jimmy and then trade for Bradley Beal, I think Beal's ability as a scorer and his, being a bit bigger than a guy like Kemba on defense would make him probably slightly more ideal, but I don't necessarily think he's like a tier A guy either. So in a very long answer to the question, I don't really think so. All that could change completely if they are able to get Jimmy Butler for like a shorter deal. I don't know why he'd take it, but if they did, that would change the dynamics considerably. I just don't want him at 5 years, and even 4 is probably too long.
Well, on the other side of that, like, what's the dream scenario? Like, who you walking out with, and you're happiest day of your life?
The dream scenario was Kawhi and KD, and then a championship next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you get Kawhi and KD, we're not going to talk ever again. I'm just going to let you just enjoy it in your California paradise, and I'm just going to go find the highest, tallest building that I can jump off of and do that. Because if you get both those guys, my God,
that would be a very scary team. I think barring injury or any other kind of weird super team forming, I think Kawhi and KD joining the nucleus the Clippers already have would win a championship. Probably a couple. But I don't think that's going to happen. Like I said, I'm probably 50-50 on Kawhi. I am not very optimistic on Durant coming to the Clippers. Really, all we've heard for months basically is the Knicks. The Nets are trying to get thrown in there, but to be quite honest, I know this will probably be music to your ears. I think that's a lot of the Nets themselves just kind of talking it up.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you, especially who is putting out the news at first. I was like, there's no way that's a national.
Yeah,
coming from the Nets.
I think I forget who said it a couple days ago. I think it might have been Woj or Windhorst about Kawhi taking meetings with the Nets and Sixers. I think Durant might take a meeting with the Nets, but all we've heard for most of the season is Knicks. And when there's smoke, there's fire. He's been mentioned to the Clippers a couple times. I really don't think they're going to get him. A lot of Clippers fans' hopes based on him being, talking up Shea and Shamet a couple times throughout the season. But I don't think a lot of these players care that much about basketball fit anymore. If they did, I think the Clippers, even bias aside, would be absolutely phenomenal for any superstar. But if KD and Kyrie want to play together in, the biggest market in the NBA, with a team that has not won anything significant for a long time, there's no better way for them to build a legacy than going to the Knicks and making the Knicks really good and fun. So I don't think that's very realistic. I do think Kawhi is a possibility. Again, I'm not super optimistic, but I'm very skeptical on Kevin Durant coming to the Clippers. But it's good news for you guys.
That is great news for us. So I'm totally all for that, and I kind of agree with you where I'm real skeptical, especially with everything going on right now, and it might be a little prisoner of the moment, but I am feeling more and more skeptical that Kawhi leaves the Raptors.
Yeah, I agree. As I've said literally all year, I think I'm happy that he's considering the Clippers, and I love all the rumors. I don't really get why he'd leave Toronto. Pascal Siakam is better than anybody on the Clippers right now. As much as I love Shea and Shamet, they have a long way to go to get to as good as he is. He's still young. He's only in his 3rd season. He's still going to get better. They're a great fit together. They have a great organization too. It's not like he's on the Lakers and they stink and their organization is a tire fire. Masai Ujiri is really good. I do have, some skepticism about Nick Nurse as a coach, but their organization is really good. And I think if he re-ups there, I think Ujiri will be able to kind of retool the roster around Kawhi and Siakam. Basketball-wise, I think the Clippers are up there, but I don't really see why he'd leave. I also love Toronto as a city. I think it's really cool. And I think
it's a beautiful place. It's fun in the summertime.
I lived in Michigan for 5 years, so the winter isn't as it's cold. I don't know. I'm not a huge proponent of just winter will scare people away. I think winter is very dealable. You get a nice jacket. These guys can afford $5,000 winter coats or whatever. They're fine.
Didn't Kawhi something happened? He tried to get shuttled down the street at All-Star game at New York that one time. like in 2015 or
It's
something
very
like
possible. I mean, there are probably Clippers fans out there who are tracking that kind of stuff. Like every indication, he hates the cold and doesn't like the snow, and just wants to live like near a beach for the rest of his life. But the other thing to me is like I think it's kind of overrated in the sense that during the NBA season, these guys don't have that much downtime. Like they're always traveling.
that.
I mean, even if they sign with the Lakers or Clippers, like they're going to be on the East Coast for a lot of the year, just playing throughout the season. A lot of it is just about the off season. These guys all go to LA in the off season anyway. So that's what the Lakers bank on is it's LA and, they're models and there's lots of media opportunities and all that kind of stuff. I just don't think that's as big a deal anymore when these guys can live anywhere in the off season. And, it's nice to have a home in LA during the season as well, but I just don't know how much of an advantage that is. So I think that's, again, good news for the Knicks. I just don't think weather is like as big of an issue as it might have been 20 or 30 years ago. And probably bad news for the Clippers regarding Kawhi because, the Raptors look really good. And again, I don't really see why he'd leave. But, again, that's the pessimist in me.
I do feel like you guys are going to get somebody, though. I just feel like between being California, which sure maybe it may mean a little bit less. Like you said, you could live anywhere now and media opportunities are kind of everywhere. But I just think the Clippers have done a really good job turning it around. I kind of like the brand that they've built and the identity that they've built. I think Ballmer's been great for you guys in general. So I just feel like between that, the young guys on the team, the money you have, I just feel like somebody's going to come. I'm not even a Clippers fan, but just from the outside, it just feels like I don't know who. Maybe it's not like the exact guy that you want, but I feel like it is an attractive destination, and I feel like you guys are going to get.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say so too. I think even if it's a guy the Clippers fans aren't super excited about, like Jimmy Butler, or even maybe Clay, with the rumors out the past couple days, I think they will get some kind of superstar free agent. And I wouldn't be that excited about just one of those guys on their own, but I think this Clippers front office is one of the best in the NBA. I trust them. And I think that, they will be able to reshape the roster over the next couple years. Once they have even a Jimmy Butler, I think it will make it easier to get another player to come there. So I'm confident they do get somebody. And really, I'm just confident they have a good summer regardless. I'm excited to see what they do. But their front office is great. They've made possibly the best series of moves in the NBA over the past year of any team I can think of. Just the way they rebuilt the team at the deadline to be better this year and also get a lot more young assets was incredible. I think it's kind of underrated almost how good their trade deadline was. I mean, people talk about stealing Zubats from the Lakers, but in some ways, that wasn't even the most remarkable of those deals. The Bradley for JaMychal Green and Garrett Temple deal probably won't have much of an impact beyond this year, but without that trade, I don't know if they go to the playoffs. I just trust them. I think they'll come out of the summer looking good no matter what. They've been very careful about preserving cap space and not signing anybody to bad deals, and I think that'll continue. So I'm excited, and I'm actually pretty optimistic.
All right, so last thing before we get you out of here, not Clippers related, but I just want to know, as somebody who covers the Blazers and I'd imagine had a very close eye on that on that series ending 3-pointer from Damian Lillard. Just what was that? What was it like just witnessing that, and like what was the initial reaction after that from your point?
It was pretty crazy.
I love that guy.
It was just, God, I wish we had happened.
He's just so oh my God, man, he's just so fucking
since
good.
J.R. Smith, like I feel like we haven't had something like that. But anyway, tell me your experience with that.
I'm not really a Blazers fan at all. I just kind of write about them, but I mean, it was still crazy. I was watching the game, and it was a banana shot. I was high on the Blazers playing against the Thunder, mostly because I think the Thunder are always overrated.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, I think it was just one of the sickest shots I've ever seen. Just the confidence, the sheer skill to pull up from 37 feet and launch like that. Paul George was right in his face. Incredible shot. I mean, I wish I was at Moda Center because that would have been absolutely crazy. But I think I was at the most crazy game of the entire playoffs anyway, because I was at Oracle for the Clippers 31-point comeback, which was pretty crazy. But watching Lillard's shot, it was just, I was on Twitter for a couple hours, probably just looking at fan reactions and seeing all the memes and everything. Just one of those moments I'll probably never forget, really. I'm not never, but won't forget for a while. I'm sure like 50 years from now, I'll probably forget it. But it was just an incredible shot. I think Damian Lillard is probably underrated. I mean, I'd say he's better than Kyrie Irving. I think he's been better than Kyrie Irving for several years now. Just he never really had that signature moment since his shot against Houston, which was a while ago now. And I think that shot really helped solidify him as one of the great guards of this generation. And I think he deserves all of it. And his leadership, it's super cliched, but his leadership, his presence in the locker room, on and off the court, he's just been amazing for the Blazers. And yeah, just kind of a legendary guy in Portland.
All right. So Robert Flom, you are the managing editor at Clips Nation. You're a stats writer for Blazers Edge. You're a Bucks writer over at the Bball Index. Really appreciate you shedding some insight on the Clippers with us. Have been pretty paranoid about how they may affect the Knicks this summer, but it seems like we may both be able to get what we want and not necessarily get in each other's way.
Oh yeah, I'd be very happy with Kawhi coming to the Clippers. Honestly, my ideal might just be Kawhi to the Clippers and them running everything back. And honestly, I'd love to see Kevin Durant play in Madison Square Garden. So I'd be perfectly happy with that scenario.
I think we got some bright days ahead of us. Thanks for coming on, dude.
Yep, thanks for having me.
And we are back with our second guest of the day. Kellan Olson, you cover the Suns for Empire of the Suns. You do editorial work, you're a writer, you're a reporter. It looks like a whole bunch of things over at Arizona Sports. What's going on, man? How are you?
What's up? I'm good. Yeah, I'm kind of being sarcastic in my bio. I just do a lot of stuff for us, and I didn't expect it to play into the intro, but I'm doing good, man.
You have a little bit of history and, as I would put it, a beef with one Brian Gibberman here.
I think everyone that works with Gibby at a certain point has beef with him. You guys probably have beef with him. The listeners probably have beef with him. It's just a thing with Gibby. He's come to accept it over his life. Isn't that right, Brian?
I am responsible for the Suns subset that you work on. Be nice to me.
That's the first time you've been referred to as Gibby on the pod. I like that.
That's what everyone around here calls him, but he's not around here anymore, so it's sad. Yeah, so it's just sad.
Kellan and I used to host a podcast along with Kevin Zimmerman at ArizonaSports.com. It actually still goes to this day, doesn't it?
Sure does, buddy. Yeah. We miss you.
They got rid of the weak link. I'm allowed to make fun of myself.
Yeah, we acquired him, so all good over here. We are here to talk to Kellan about the Suns free agency and what their summer is looking like. Another potentially dangerous team against the Knicks. We were just talking to Robert Flom about the Clippers potentially having some impact on how our summer is going to look, but kind of the other way around. I'm more worried about the Suns through the draft. It seems to me like, I don't know why, but it's either Phoenix or Dallas in my mind that's going to end up, stopping the Knicks from getting Zion. And I bet that's kind of just a dream scenario for you.
Oh, interesting. I totally do not believe that they are going to get Zion or number 2 or number 3. It's pretty much doom over here and gloom all the time. But I have already, in fact, ordered my Zion Knicks jersey, so I'm just going to jinx that even more on a Knicks podcast itself. I'm just very excited for you guys. I already texted Gibby congratulations like 3 months ago. It's just a great time for you guys.
That seems to be what's going on around. That's like how everyone's kind of viewing us around the league, and none of us have that sense of optimism here. Like I'm pretty sure, all of us here are just about convinced that the Knicks are going to get the 5th pick in the draft this year. Like we're getting the 5th pick, and we probably we'll probably end up drafting somebody who has the ceiling of about Kevin Knox right now. So
I feel like every fan base is just looking at him being like, oh great, can't wait for Cam Reddish or DeAndre Hunter. I don't think anyone is like expecting to get Ja or Zion.
And then I look and I see people tweeting in at us and everything, and it's Kyrie and Kevin Durant and Zion in a Knicks jersey. So you have this, you definitely have the half of the fan base that is pretty damn sure that this dream scenario is going to happen, and then the rest of us jaded fans who just know that there's no way it can't possibly happen as good as it seems. And I kind of wonder what that scenario looks like for the Suns right now. Like, I guess going into the summer, how much what's your cap situation looking like? What would be your dream scenario to come out of the summer with?
So the 3 main things for them, the first one is re-signing Kelly Oubre. It depends on how much money he's going to get, of course. If some crazy team out of nowhere gives him $19 or $20 million and strikes out on other free agents, I don't know if that sounds like a team that's familiar to you guys at all that would potentially do that to him. But I think that he's the guy that they have to bring back, first of all, which is how many positives he brought. But obviously the number one thing is getting a point guard. They went through all of last season without a point guard, unless you count Juwan Evans or Isaiah Kanan or Tyler Johnson, and I certainly do not. So that's kind of just really the only things left for them, are just to add the point guard and bring back Oubre, and I think that would be a pretty successful offseason. It sounds like it's pretty easy, and it should be easy, but with how much they've screwed up the past couple of years, I think Brian can attest to the difficulties they've had the past couple of years just doing really basic basketball front office things that we're just more looking at them not to screw things up. It's more about that. And the Monty hire was a good start, at least.
All right. So to get that point, you got the point guard and power forward situation that are a little bit up in the air. What's basically happened is the wing situation has kind of gotten complicated, because you got Booker, who's locked in. I think Bridges, I would assume, is locked in unless Jones doesn't like him or Bauer don't like him. You have Warren and Josh Jackson. Jackson and Warren are the 2 guys that stick out to me. How do you think they handle that situation?
Yeah, I think one of them is gone, and probably both. It just kind of seems like this is going to be the launching point for their ascension from the rebuild, and kind of get all of the guys and just like the personnel. They've really like cleaned out their staff, and obviously firing Igor and everything. It just feels like they're cleansing everything out. And Jackson and Warren are the 2 guys stylistically that don't fit in the most with what they're trying to do. Oubre does, Bridges does, and that's 2 guys. Oubre, you're going to be paying a lot of money, so you got to give him his minutes, of course. And then Bridges has earned the right for 30, 35 minutes a game with the way he played as a rookie. So there's just not much to go around, really. And I think that's the biggest problem with Warren and Jackson, is that Warren kind of profiles as a guy who can play some small ball 4. Jackson can play some 2, but both of them have been questionable at the 3, that it's hard to buy into their flexibility. So if I'm a team like the Knicks, for example, that's looking for a wing or just looking to pick up talent, I think those 2 names do stick out for me for sure.
All right, so Jackson, same draft class as Frank, same draft class as Dennis Smith Jr. Say if the Knicks were interested in Jackson, would either of those names, you think, pique the Suns' interest?
Maybe last year, but I think that they're focused on what they have to add at the position, which is just a sound veteran, a sound average to above average point guard. I think that's what they tried to get with Tyler Johnson, but they have to get something more. And maybe there's a situation in which they trade Tyler Johnson, get that point guard, and then they have a point guard to come up off the bench. But that's kind of already D'Anthony Melton and Elliot Kobo. They already have 2 of those guys, and Smith or Ntilikina would be the 3rd. Brian knows how much of a fan of Ntilikina I am. I still hold some stock in him. I was really high on him coming out of that draft. But I don't think it's just not the right time for the Suns to get one of these guys. I thought it might have been last year or certainly 2 years ago. But I think it's just kind of passed, unfortunately, for the point guard fit that's kind of obvious. And the Knicks maybe getting rid of one, or depending on if they get Ja or not, I think could be more, we assume.
It strikes me as interesting because the natural landing spot and the place I've always assumed that the Knicks were going to be moving Frank to this summer, it seemed to be Phoenix. I mean, it just seems like, I don't know. It feels like I might be a little behind on Phoenix's rebuild than maybe they are in actuality, or maybe I'm not alone. Maybe it's the rest of the league that kind of feels like it too. But I guess what is the next step for this team? Like, they obviously finished with, nearly as low of a record as Knicks did this season, although that obviously didn't get beat by anybody. But like, what would you have to see this team do to take the next step forward? What would that look like to you?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. It's kind of one of the biggest, not misconceptions, but just if you're looking at this team and the not following it day to day from the outside, I think you're going to come up with that sort of position, right? Where you look at Frank or you look at DSJ and you're like, yeah, they would be great for them. It would be a low risk type of high upside type of point guard who could wind up being their long-term guy, and it makes sense for them. But the team and the franchise really, with the playoff drive and everything, has hit a certain point where they just really need to add the right veterans around DeAndre and Devin Booker and really start turning this thing around. And more so, it's been about Booker. Brian's been around enough to kind of realize that Booker has been more upset in the past year, and just not, there haven't been rumblings of him being upset or wanting out, but you just see what's happening across the league and the trends the past couple of years. It seems like it's heading in a certain direction where if the lack of just sound basketball decisions and firing a GM or a head coach 3 straight years like they have, if that sort of stuff continues, Booker's going to want out eventually, even if he's only 2 or 3 years on that max deal he signed. And that's, of course, when everything kind of falls off the rails. And there's a certain sense of urgency surrounding the team. I wouldn't say it's pressure from Sarver or anything, but it just seems like they have the young talent already. They have the 2 young point guards I mentioned, who shouldn't really factor into their like big picture, of course, but they've got it, and they've got Booker, they've got Bridges, they've got whatever Jackson turns into, and of course they're going to have a top 7 pick in this year's draft. So they have all their first round picks coming up. It's just they have all these pieces already. Now it's time for them to sort of get on the move, and more importantly, they have those pieces that are good. Like Booker's a great young piece, Aiden's a great young piece, Bridges is a pretty solid one. They don't really need to be scouring right now for the likes of those 2 guys.
No, at this point, the Suns it's more about next year. Like, it's not get a top 5 pick. It's that they're fine getting. I think they're in a place where, all right, let's take that next step. If it's 35 wins, and then from a year from now, then we're getting to 40s and in the playoffs. But like, they're at that, it should be ascending. It should no longer be staying flat all the way at the bottom. Like, how if they say they bombed again next year, and I don't think they will, do you think we start hearing noise about Booker wanting out, even though it will only be after year 1 of his big deal?
Yeah, for sure. I think we will, and I think what they've kind of interestingly done with the Monty hire is they've set a precedent for him having control of the locker room right away, which is what he should have, right? Because he's one of the most well-respected guys around the league, and I know you, Gibby, have thoughts like I do negatively about the way that he's coached in the past, but the bottom line is if a guy like that loses control of the locker room right away and they start 5-26 or whatever, and they're certainly capable of that with the roster that they have right now. We'll see the offseason and what they do. But I don't see how that doesn't lead to Booker being upset, to use a double negative. I just can't envision it to where he would look around in year 5 for him playing at arguably, I think, like he's certainly been at an all-star level, in my opinion, the past year or so, and I think he's like approaching an all-NBA level. I know a lot of people think that he's empty stats on a really bad team, but watching him every game, I think that he's ready to get to that level, and if he can't even win 25 games at that level, it's going to force him to take it into his own hands, which would be leaving this dumpster fire of a situation, which is still what it is, despite the strong hiring of Monty, in the sense of there's some sense of hope around the team since that move.
Yeah, I hope you guys get Ja Morant, to keep it a buck. I know a lot of Knicks fans are high on him and want him, and I would enjoy him dearly. But to your point about Booker needing to get to that level, I just feel like things are just going to really open up with a dynamic point guard like that. Like, that's kind of what he needs. Obviously, you mentioned that earlier, that they tried to get guys like that. But I think like a Ja Morant type, like a guy who's going to really be diming and dishing and really just throwing passes that you don't see regular point guards throw. And he's also able to shoot the rock, obviously. I just think that's like the ideal situation. Like Zion would be great, obviously. Zion projects to be a generational guy. We all want him. But like, I think like Ja would do the most for Booker in the short term, or at least open it up his offense anyway. And I'd like to at least see that if you guys can't get Zion, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I'm lower on Ja than most. I have hot takes about him and don't think he's without a doubt the second best prospect in this class. But I think if he comes in the league and establishes himself as a passer right away, he has like such tremendous like vision and ability to pass the ball that I think that he would be so great for Booker. And the funny thing about Booker is in year 3 for him, it was just about him playing around capable basketball players. It didn't even matter that they fit. It was like Tyson Chandler and Marquise Chris and Tyler Ulis he's starting with right now, and he's putting up these numbers. It's pretty ridiculous. And then last year, it was actually he was playing with quality players, but they were all so young. And now I think it's about finding those players with experience, which is where, again, I go to counter the Ja point and say they need a veteran at point guard. And I don't know if he would be unwilling to wait on Ja and him going through the typical rookie second-year point guard stuff that most of those guys do. But I that's the only place where I question it, because I totally agree with what you're saying, though, and that just having someone else to take the pressure off of him and set him up would be huge. Tyler Johnson was doing that at the end of last year, and if you can think of like what Tyler Johnson was able to do to give him some relief, you can imagine what Ja would do if he was able to reach what we think he can as a prospect.
You're also, Kellan, you're also a draft Knick, so let's steal your expertise. Let's use your expertise on that while you're here also. Let's start with this from the Suns' perspective. So you said Ja isn't necessarily the second prospect on your board. How would you tier that for the Suns after Zion? And then give me your opinion on the Knicks after Zion. Who do you like as a fit for that?
Mm-hmm. So I think that the Suns would undoubtedly take Ja too. So I don't think what I think matters too much into that. But I actually, right now, the difference between 2 and 4 for me is there's pretty much nothing, and it's really hard for me to say. I actually have RJ 2 right now and Jarrett Culver 3 just because of what Barrett showed in the tournament specifically as a ball handler instead of a point guard. I think there's some untapped stuff there if he can stop trying to be a really shitty version of DeMar DeRozan for 10 seconds and figure it out. But I have doubts about that, and everyone has doubts about that, which is why some people just hate him in this draft. I really like Culver's skill set. I think he's just good at a lot of things, and it's pretty basic with that. He has great size. He's a pretty solid passer. He can score a lot off the dribble in terms of the being able to. Now, the problem with him is, of course, consistency, and if he can be a primary, secondary dude, I don't really know. And that's why I would not clearly put him number 2 right now. And then I kind of talked about Ja for a bit. And those guys in Phoenix, I think RJ is a secondary ball handler to Booker. I think that's where the fit is. And for Culver, it's just another good basketball player to put in between Booker and Ayton and next to Bridges. I don't really know where they fit on the roster. I don't really have any thoughts in terms of who fits on who we exactly fitting around the Knicks, right? Are we thinking like who plays next to Kevin Knox? I'm not trying to be an asshole here, I swear, but like who are we looking at in terms of who fits? Is it just like Fizdale's system, Gibby?
No, more, I guess, with the guys that they have, there really isn't a fit thing with them. It's just going best available.
I can't forget about your boy Mitchell too. You have so much Mitchell stock. Do your podcast co-host have any Mitchell stock left? Did you take it all from him?
No, we certainly have plenty of Mitchell stock. Yeah, it's literally the light in the darkness right now.
I covered the Knicks game, and I saw Gibberman walking around with his Robinson jersey, the rookie year jersey, and I'm like, oh man, that's when you know this guy's just infatuated. He's got an issue.
Brian was all in back in like January right about January, early February, because I still had issues with Mitch because, you know, as a center, you need to be able to rebound the ball and also not foul enough to stay in the game. And he wasn't doing those things consistently yet. But Brian was like immediately all in. And I was like, hey, maybe let's see him rebound more than 4 times a game and maybe stay in the game for more than 15 minutes. And then I'll be right there with you. And then I think almost right after I said that on the podcast, he started doing exactly that for the rest of the season. So it was pretty easy to just – I had one stipulation, and then he met it almost immediately. So what am I going to do? I bought all the rest of the stuff.
For sure.
Dude's a workhorse, too. It's just – he's just such a thrill to see on the court. And, you know, we spoke to his agent a couple of weeks ago on the pod, and I mean, you couldn't – find it seems like he's the hardest working guy on the team. Like, it just seems like he is constantly trying to improve his game. He's trying to bring along the 3-point shot. Like, I don't know what is going, what his like path really projects to be. He's just like a dude who seems like he's going to make his own destiny and not really have too big of a mold to follow. But yeah, I am so high on Mitchell Robinson. There's very few players in the league, very few picks in the league that I would move him for.
Yeah, for sure. You guys can probably relate to this. If you guys get Katie and Kyrie or whatever, I'm actually going to be more excited to see like what Mitchell Robinson does in year 2 than like the combination of that. That just kind of speaks to how I look at basketball, and I'm kind of a weirdo because I'm just like, oh man, Mitchell Robinson are up good players. Let's see if Gibby's right. You know what I mean?
You guys had a center that wasn't too bad his rookie year. What do you think of how would you view what Aiden did?
So context for everyone, Gibberman will laugh in the background while I tell this story. I was pretty much the only person here locally that thought they should take Luka over Aiden, and I was on that horn from the summer before, and it kept going and going, and I kind of became known as the Aiden hater by default because of that. But I have to say that he really improved over the course of the season, and the biggest doubt that I had about him wasn't his defense. It was just, can he be dominant enough offensively to make up for defense if his defense sucks? But his post moves and just the creativity that he's showing on the block is actually something that I didn't see coming so soon for him. And he already has post moves and counters to other post moves that we saw him gradually get into. And it's going to be fascinating to see if Monty looks to get him the ball more, because I'm not really sure if he's ready for that yet, because in like the first 10 games of the season when he was still U of A, DeAndre Ayton, whenever he would dribble the ball, it was a disaster. And we just moved on from that to where he could actually dribble a bit and set up for himself. So I think he improved greatly, and defensively he was pretty great as well in terms of what you want out of a rookie center. So I actually feel pretty highly about him. I don't know in terms of like expected ceilings or whatever, because I think it's still too early with how much is possible for him. But it's really exciting that they have like a legitimate number 2 to Booker right now, which is really all I wanted him to be and want him to be going forward.
I can't believe that. I just can't believe that Luka over Ayton was a hot take.
Yeah,
I thought
that's exactly what I was going to say.
I really like Ayton.
Almost frustrating.
Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't get how it's a hot take. Like, we could disagree. Like, I'm higher on John Morant than you are, and you're higher on RJ than I am, right? But that's like a minor disagreement. It's not a hot take. I can't believe it would be like people were really against Luka. Like, that's got to be maddening. Like, it makes like I was really high on Luka. I had him, I think, first, like most people did, most sane people did last year. Made a lot of sense. Made all the sense. I just don't know. I don't know. That's
Gibby can attest. If you heard the narratives long enough, you could kind of figure out how they crafted it up. But it was pretty bad. It was a lot of people who hadn't watched him, which I mean, of course not. Of course, they're not on Eurobasket.com or whatever. You know what I mean?
Kellan, I'm not going to get you into trouble. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut right now.
Yeah.
Well, I said it with the last dude we had on talk about the Clippers. We were talking about with Robert. I think that the future is also pretty rosy for the Suns. Like I am gonna stay optimistic about it. And you described it as a garbage fire before. It seems like a garbage fire with the hole peeking in through the top that you can maybe climb your way out of. So I feel good about them. I think you guys should feel good about your odds too.
We do, but we're just not getting weird. Oh man, Suns Twitter and just like Suns fans are going to be so unbearable if they're good, because they're just waiting to be cocky, but they're all in their own self misery. We just want to win. Like, can we just win 27 games next season? Is that too much to ask for? Like, that's the kind of state of mind we're in. Can we just flirt with 30 wins possibly? And that's where we'll start to get some optimism, I think.
Yeah, we gotta get to that Kings tier this year. That little sweet spot of slight overachievement, but you haven't arrived yet. Like, if you just get in there, I think that's enough.
Yeah,
all right.
definitely.
Well, Kellan, thanks a ton for coming on. Make sure you're following him at Kellan Olson. Follow at Empire of the Suns. What is the station number you're at? 98.7. If you're in the Arizona area, give him a listen. Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on again. right, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks again to Blue Wire and the whole team over there for having us on the network. Looking forward to everything we have to come over here. Check out the Offseason Simulator on the knickswall.com. Check out the Knicks Wall for all of the content you need on Twitter. Make sure you're subscribed to us on YouTube. Make sure that you are following all of us at Corbo Anthony, at Kyle Maggio, at Brian Gibberman. We have some special in store for the rest of this week, but we'll be back and to talk to you all very soon.